After falling out with his friends, Shaggy must save Scooby-Doo from the clutches of Dick Dastardly before the villain resurrects a creature from the underworld. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie, Scoob, from 2020. In a Venice Beach restaurant, a dog steals a giant piece of meat and runs out into the street when the store owner notices him. During the escape, a policeman alerts him and starts chasing him. The two of them jump on a skateboard and start doing radical maneuvers, and the dog manages to lose the policeman. Nevertheless, he recovers and the escape continues. The pair run over a boy called Shaggy Rogers, who is sad because he doesn't have any friends. The animal hides in a pile of sand, where Shaggy begins to play by himself and pretends to have friends. Hearing the boy talking to himself, the dog takes pity on him and decides to show up, but scares the youngster. Shaggy then decides to share his sandwich with the animal, so the dog offers him a piece of meat. However, the policeman shows up and claims that he will arrest the dog for the theft, but Shaggy confesses that he is its guardian. At that moment, he is forced to invent a name for the dog, saying that his name is Scoob. Afterwards, the boy takes his new partner home and gives him a collar, which he loves. On Halloween night, the pair of friends stroll down the street to ask for sweets. Suddenly, two boys steal the bag of candy and throw it into a haunted house. A boy called Fred appears and helps Shaggy to his feet, accompanied by two girls called Velma and Daphne. Together, the group decides to break into the haunted house to recover the lost sweets. Fred knocks on the door, and it opens by itself. The blonde boy walks boldly towards the bag of sweets. However, after handing the bag back to its owner, they return to the exit of the house and hear a strange noise. A cupboard in the living room opens by itself as if it had a life of its own, so Velma decides to check it out. Inside, there are several clothes on a hanger, which start to move. Just then, a ghost with glowing eyes appears from the middle of the pieces. They try to hold the door, but the monster manages to open it. The group tries to leave the house, but all the exits are suddenly closed. Scooby and Shaggy get scared and hide in the closet, while Fred and Velma go upstairs, and Daphne is stopped by the ghost, who runs after her. Fred realizes that the man is tied up by a cable that is fixed to the ceiling of the house, so he throws a sharp weapon, which causes the rope to snap in half, and the creature falls to the ground. The girls rush to tie him up and Fred delivers the final blow. The group realizes that the enemy is just a normal man wearing a horrifying mask. Shaggy and Scooby have found a secret compartment inside the cupboard, which is full of stolen items. The group decides to continue unraveling mysteries around the city. Daphne is always distracted and doesn't see the monsters approaching, while Fred is very brave. Time passes and they all become adults, yet they continue to solve puzzles, but now the group calls itself Mystery Incorporated. They need to invest in the company in order to be able to uncover more elaborate crimes. The team meets a sponsor called Simon, who judges the members of the group. He says that Fred is strong, Daphne is charismatic and Velma very intelligent, but Shaggy and Scooby are useless. However, their friends try to defend them, but the pair feel offended and leave the diner. Later, Shaggy and Scooby have fun at the bowling alley. The dog almost knocks over one of the pins, but it gets up on its own and eyes appear on the object, as if it were a robot. When he asks Shaggy to look, the pin disappears on its own, making it look like the dog has hallucinated. Shaggy pushes the buttons to make the machine release another bowling ball, but all the machines around are releasing balls except his. After a few seconds, the object comes out of its machine and becomes an evil robot. At that moment, the other balls and some bowling pins also become monsters. The creatures begin to approach the pair and shoot laser beams at them, who run frantically past the receptionist, who doesn't even notice the attack. The two hide behind the counter of the snack bar and pretend to be waiters to fool the robots. However, one of them realizes the disguise and the pair of friends escape through the bowling ball exit. While driving through the city streets in their van, Fred, Daphne and Velma receive a call for evil robots in a bowling alley, and discover that they are Shaggy and Scooby. Meanwhile, the two try to escape, but they find no exit and the enemies are getting closer and closer with their powerful weapons. However, some kind of ship begins to abduct them and the enemies crash into the wall. The aircraft is called Falcon's Fury, and those robots have been sent by Dick Dastardly, who wants to capture the young man and his dog. The place is super technological and, just as the pair are looking around, a puff of smoke appears on the floor and a hero called the Blue Falcon appears in a super elaborate entrance. What's more, they meet his robotic dog, called Dynamut. The original Blue Falcon has retired and now Brian, his son, is taking over. Suddenly, an alert is sounded because Dick Dastardly is chasing the ship. The villain is looking for the skulls of Cerberus, a mythological dog with 3 heads. However, no one knows what these objects have to do with the mystery hunters. The enemy ship traps the Falcon's Fury by some cables and begins to pull on it. Then the girl DD unleashes laser beams and manages to loosen the ties, which sends the aircraft tumbling through the air, but they manage to regain control and escape from their adversary. Brian then invites the two friends to go on the mission with his team and they accept. At the same time, Fred and the girls go to the bowling alley and discover that Shaggy and Scooby have been abducted by a spaceship. What's more, the team manages to catch one of the villain's robots, which Velma analyzes. Through the data on the machine, the young woman discovers that the person responsible for the attack is Dick Dastardly, who has several police tickets for stealing historical artifacts, such as the skull of a giant dog and genealogical data on various dogs. Those animals are related to Scooby, who is the last descendant of Peritas, Alexander the Great's favorite dog. Fred starts the van, which takes off with all its might. At that moment, the robot, which was alone in the back of the vehicle, hits the wall and starts up again. Dick is so evil that he takes one of his subordinates and replaces his head with a vacuum cleaner in front of all the other machines, in order to make them afraid. DD found the location of the skull through its heat mark, but Brian claims that he received the message from an anonymous fan and that they should follow those coordinates, even if it could be a trap. The Falcon's Fury ship arrives in the Romanian desert. The team heads to the location indicated by the anonymous follower, but there is no skull there, only Dick Dastardly and his henchmen. Just as Brian's team prepares to attack, the hero flees. Scooby and Shaggy receive several laser beam shots and DD shoots them with the spaceship. Dick approaches Shaggy and his dog, who enter an abandoned game store, but a robot appears in one of the toys to hit the target, so the pair of friends try to hit it with a sledgehammer. After a few minutes, the villain breaks down the door of the place and points a gun at Shaggy, saying that all he wants to do is capture Scooby. The madman throws Shaggy away from the place and makes him fall into the Ferris wheel, where Falcon is hiding. The dog manages to hide in the House of Mirrors. The crook finds him and tells him that he is special because he is the key to his plan. What's more, by allying himself with the villain, Scooby will be the most important dog in the world. Even so, the animal runs away from the man. Dick finds the dog, but Dynamite prevents him from capturing the animal. Falcon hands Shaggy a 2 trillion volt bomb to throw at his enemies, but he misses the target and the object falls into the Ferris wheel cabin. They fumble to get the object out as time passes, about to explode the weapon. However, Shaggy manages to throw it and hits the base of the toy, which causes the Ferris wheel to break and start moving around the park. Shaggy and Brian fall into a roller coaster cart, where Scooby and Dynamite are also, so the four of them escape from the man. After arriving at a broken part of the track, the group is abducted by the Falcon's Fury ship and Dick falls from an absurd height. Later, the villain discovers the location of Scoob's friends. At the same time, the dog gets a new uniform, but his collar gets in the way, so the robots remove it, which makes Shaggy very sad. Through social media, Velma discovers that Shaggy and Scooby have not been kidnapped, but abducted by the Falcon's ship. A few minutes later, the van is interrupted by a policewoman and just as Fred is about to say something, he becomes very taken with the woman's beauty and asks them to get out of the vehicle. The girls say they were speeding because they had to chase a villain, who is very ugly. At that moment, the girl takes off her costume and reveals that she is Dick Dastardly in disguise. The broken robot comes out of the van and other enemies get out of the car and arrest the three friends. Later, inside the cell on the enemy ship, Daphne tries to find a secret passage by pushing her chair back, but it falls to the ground in a clumsy way. Suddenly, the robot vacuum cleaner comes down with an allergic attack and Daphne removes the dust from his head so that he stops sneezing. Velma asks the little guy for help and he opens the cell door. The three friends hide in the ship and find Dick, who tells his subordinates that he intends to go to Messick Mountain in search of the last skull. The group goes to a room where there is a communication radio, which Velma connects to Dynamite, so that she can talk through the robotic dog. She sends a message saying that the group is trapped on the enemy's ship and that they are heading towards Messick Mountain. After losing the radio signal, Fred and the girls notice that in the living room there is a diagram on the wall, full of images of dogs and the gate to the underworld, which protects Alexander the Great's treasure, which can only be opened by him or one of his descendants, i.e. Scoob. However, behind these gates there are also unimaginable dangers. In the ship's bizarre bedroom, there is also a painting of Mudley, the villain's best friend. After opening the portal to the underworld, the man sent his dog inside to fetch the treasure, but the animal failed to return. Meanwhile, DD speeds up the ship and enters a cave full of ice spikes, but Shaggy is not wearing his seatbelt and starts to get in the way of the ship's control, so she runs over several crystals, which causes turbulence. Falcon's Fury then crosses an ice wall, which leads to a hidden place where there is an island with prehistoric animals such as pterodactyls. The ship lands on the ground and everyone goes in search of the skull, except Shaggy, who is left by his friend Scooby. Along the way, the dog starts sniffing around in order to find the skull as soon as possible. However, they find some kind of caveman. The guy claims he'll help them find what they want, and they start following him. Fred appears near the aircraft and tells Shaggy that the girls have been taken and asks where Scooby is. Soon after, he insists that Shaggy take him to the animal, before the enemy finds him first. Meanwhile, Brian and the dog discover the location of the skull, which is in the middle of a battle arena. However, they can only take the object if they defeat Captain Caveman. Suddenly, the place is filled with people applauding their ally. The captain uses his hammer-shaped staff with a face to strike Falcon in the head, who is thrown away like a ball. The collision was so strong that a piece of the wall fell on top of Brian. His opponent then jumps on top of him, causing the hero to be crushed even more. Scooby presses a button on his uniform, which makes floating stones appear on his feet. He flies awkwardly around the arena, and the audience laughs at him. Faced with this situation, the dog takes control of his body and throws a hook at his opponent, who manages to catch the cable and start spinning the animal like a top. The force of the spin is such that the dog's technological uniform breaks into pieces. DD appears with Dynamite, who goes after the skull. The girl attacks Captain Caveman with a stick, but the man easily dodges. Suddenly, the mystery machine invades the battle arena. Dino Mutt fires his missiles and hits Captain Caveman, who sinks brutally into the wall behind. At the same moment, DD wonders how he managed to get the van to such a remote location. At that moment, Fred reveals that he is actually Dick Dastardly in disguise and captures Scoob. Several evil robots with wings appear and the Dick Dastardly steals the prehistoric skull. He also throws Fred and the girls from an enormous height, but they are saved by Falcon's team. Mystery Incorporated and Brian's group return to the ship and realize that it has been completely destroyed by the enemy. In a few minutes, everyone starts fighting, so Shaggy interrupts the confusion and makes a speech, in which he claims that all this is his fault, because he let his jealousy of Scooby get in the way of the mission, so he invites everyone to continue chasing the adversary. Dick gathers all the skulls in a temple and a greenish mist begins to transform everything around. Ruins are restored and some ancient buildings appear out of nowhere. Just then, the mystery machine came flying through the sky. When one of the opponents is about to hit the car with a missile, the robot vacuum cleaner tries to stop him, but the projectile is fired and hits the vehicle. After the blow, the van crashes at high speed into the restored ruins. In this way, Dynamite tries to cushion the collision by holding on to the car, thus making it stop moving forward. The gates of the underworld begin to open and a giant three-headed dog, Cerberus, emerges from within. At that moment, Dick runs away. Scooby goes straight to the van and manages to open the door to save his friends. The villain finds the treasure he wanted so badly, and in the middle of the gold he also comes across Muttley passed out. The man hugs his companion and says he's sorry, but the dog starts laughing, which shows that he's alive and well. At that moment, the man punches him, and Muttley bites the villain's leg as a way of showing that he missed him. Meanwhile, the team of mystery hunters are hiding inside a giant vase. The place is completely dark and they realize too late that Fred isn't inside. The blonde young man uses part of the van as a shield and decides to avenge the destruction of his vehicle. He then heads towards the giant dog, which uses just one finger to throw him away. Shaggy and Scooby are tasked with destroying Cerberus. On the other hand, Fred and the girls must figure out how to close the gate. At that moment, they are running from the giant monster that is dropping debris from the ruins everywhere. Daphne, Shaggy and Scooby are cornered, but are saved by Dynamite, who tries to distract the creature with his missiles, but is hit. When it realizes that its friend is in danger, the robot vacuum cleaner commands all the others to go after Cerberus. During the attack, the little one falls into Daphne's arms, who kisses him and makes him happy. Blue Falcon is discouraged, but Dynamite encourages him to use his powers. At that moment, the hero uses the wings of his uniform and accidentally hits a wall. Soon after, Shaggy and Scooby are about to be swallowed by the creature, but Brian appears and prevents it by opening the animal's mouth, also saving the dog when it is about to fall to the ground. On the other hand, Dick and Muttley escape with the treasure without anyone noticing. Velma tries to find out how to close the gate using a clue that was with Fred, and discovers that in order to close it, Scooby and his best friend have to stand on either side of the portal. At the same time, Shaggy and the dog start bowling with the robots, throwing the balls towards the creature. DD and Falcon lure the monster close to the gate and the bowling balls make it slide towards the underworld. Together everyone closes the gates and the team looks at Shaggy and Scooby with great sadness, as one of them must close the door from the outside and the other friend will be trapped inside the underworld. Faced with this situation, Scooby decides to save his partner, but Shaggy stops him and enters the underworld. The two of them put their hands on the gate, which makes the magic of the ruins disappear, and so does the passage. Velma doesn't understand why Alexander the Great would make a gate that would separate him from his best friend. Suddenly, a statue of the ancient king appears and there is a message written on the stone. A door opens through the rock, and a giant paw pushes Shaggy out of the underworld. Afterwards, they all hug and Shaggy puts the collar on his companion. At that moment, Velma says that the pair are the heart of the Mystery Incorporated. Dick and Mudley are captured by their own robots. Shaggy removes the villain's mask and discovers that Simon was behind it all. However, Velma claims that it doesn't make sense and realizes that there is another mask underneath, revealing that Dick is himself. A few days later, Mystery Incorporated opens its own store and throws a party to celebrate, with Blue Falcon as DJ. What's more, the team is presented with a completely renovated and more technological van. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.